Hello everyone, I'm Casey and I'm one of the ballet instructors here at Broche Ballet. Today I want to talk about how to stretch properly for splits. A lot of people ask about splits, how to do splits, I want to do splits, so I'm going to break some of that material down for you. Before we get started, if you enjoy our videos, please like, subscribe, share our videos on YouTube. We love to hear from you all. It helps gives us more exposure and be able to share more of what we love with everybody. So today I'm going to talk about 3 different things. First thing, how to stretch properly for the splits and what specific muscles we need to use to warm up. Number 2, techniques for stretching, so how we incorporate our breath and using and releasing certain muscles. And then 3, some of my favorite stretches and tips. So before we get started, I just wanted to address a question that a lot of people have. As adults, can I do the splits if I've never done the splits before? Or I want to be more flexible. I just started ballet a few months ago, but I can hardly touch my toes. The answer is yes, you can. The important thing is to remember to be patient and to go slow. Because when we push our bodies too quickly and too hard, particularly when we're not warm, that's when we're more prone to injury. For example, I pulled my right hamstring over a decade ago when I was doing a really intense standing split stretch and my body was not warm enough, and it took a long time to recover from that injury. So it's super important that when you stretch and are working towards splits or any other flexibility goals, that you stretch when you are warm. So typically that's why we stretch at the bar after we finish bar in class, or even after class at the end of class. Or if you like to run and you go for a run in your neighborhood or go for a walk and your muscles are nice and warm, then go home and stretch. A lot of people will stretch before they do their physical activity, and that's when you can get more prone to getting injured. So it's really important to make sure we properly warm the body up. For example, in ballet, you'd want to have a nice full bar, make sure your muscles are nice and warm before you do any of that type of stretching, or maybe even do some jumps and some turns in center and then work on your splits then. So first off, what to stretch? So everyone thinks, oh, splits, you're just stretching your legs apart. Yes, that's true, but there's a lot more involved. So typically when we're thinking about getting our side splits, so when you're doing a grand jeté and a ballerina has her legs just extending straight out, there are 2 big things we want to think about. The first thing is the hamstring muscle. So our thigh consists of 2 big muscles. We have the quad in the front and then the hamstring on the bottom. The hamstring on the bottom is what we really use a lot for splits to really have that nice and strong. And typically in our society and day and age, hamstrings are very tight. A lot of us spend days sitting at a desk all day. So these muscles are contracted all the time instead of lengthened, which is why it's really important to stretch those. In addition to the hamstrings, your hip flexors are also super important. Because if you're stretching your legs out this way, one leg has to have a very flexible hamstring, while the other leg has to have a very flexible hip. So sometimes if you have one tight hip and one tight hamstring, your splits will likely not be as flexible on that side. And those are the areas that we need to strengthen as well as lengthen out to be able to get the splits on those sides. So second, we're going to talk a bit about stretching technique. A lot of people think, oh, I want to stretch but don't know how to stretch or what I should be doing when I'm stretching. The biggest important thing, in my opinion, with stretching is your breathing. Because when we hold our breath, our muscles naturally just tighten. They somehow think they have to protect us. And we want to let them know that, no, it's okay. You can relax and we can move with you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips with that. So for example, if you were sitting on your yoga mat at home and you were just going to do a hamstring stretch, sometimes what I like to do is actively tighten my muscles before I release them. Because often when we're doing a stretch, I know me personally, sometimes I don't realize the muscle's tight. Maybe I've had a stressful day or holding lots of tension in my body. So I'll actively tighten all the muscles and take a deep breath in, and when I exhale and breathe out, I try to relax a little bit. And typically that helps me feel what was tight, where I was holding tension, and where I can release tension. And then typically as I'm stretching, I'll take inhales and exhales, and on the exhales is when I like to think about relaxing even more. So for example, we could take a breath in, and on the exhale I'm going to release into that muscle, and then kind of hold it for a couple seconds. We don't want to push anything too fast because we don't want to pull anything when muscles are not super warm. So again, with each exhale, I'll breathe in, and on the exhale, just sink a little bit deeper. It might even just be 1/4 of an inch, but try to feel those muscles continue to release as you exhale. So last, we'll get into a couple of my favorite stretches. So since this video is predominantly about splits, I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite stretches that I like to do before I go into splits. So again, we talked about how important the hamstring and the hip flexors are when we do our splits. So some of my favorite exercises, I'll come on all fours, and if you have sensitive knees, it's nice to put an extra towel or a mat on top of your mat just to give you some extra support here. So I'm going to bring my left leg in front. So I'm kneeling on one leg and I'm flexing the other foot. I'm lengthening out of my waist, so just like we think about lengthening when we're in our ballet positions, it's nice to practice that on the mat too while we're stretching. So instead of hunching over, I'm lifting out of my hips, and that not only is going to give me a better stretch, but it's going to help me with my technique. So I'm going to think about pulling my toes back toward my face and hinging forward as far as I can go without collapsing, and that's going to give me more true sense of where I need to be for my stretch here. So again, I'm just holding and breathing. We typically like to hold stretches between 15 to 30 seconds, preferably 30. It often takes a lot of time for our muscles to fully relax and give. So we want to make sure we're not just hinging over and then we get back up. We want to actually sit in that stretch for a little bit of time. And then from here, what I often like to do is I'll rock my weight forward and check that my knee is in line with my ankle. We don't want the knee pressing out over the toes because that's going to cause some discomfort and hurt in the knee. And we want to make sure we know the difference between good pain and bad pain. So for instance, if I felt some twinging and uncomfortableness in my knee, I'd want to back off of that, as opposed to just feeling some tightness. There's a difference there. So from here, making sure my knee and my ankle are in line, I'm going to think about dropping that opposite hip toward the floor. So rather than sitting back, I'm thinking about pressing my hips forward. So you should feel a nice length stretch through that opposite hip flexor, just like you would in an arabesque. And again, I'm just going to hold and breathe here. And stretching both of these sides are the big things that I want for my split. So after I hold that a couple times, I'll often switch back and forth. Take a couple seconds in each position. Really, really stretch that out. And then finally, if you have your splits or again are working toward them, I often like to slide my back leg out. Some people like to slide out the front, but since my left leg's planted, I find it easier to slide the back. So if you're not quite ready to fully straighten that leg, you don't have to. And this is where if you have a ball or a yoga block at home and you don't quite have the split, it's nice to put that under there for support, or a yoga block on each side to lift you out until you can finally slide and get your hips most of the way down to the floor. Again, we lengthen this muscle and lengthen this muscle to be able to achieve this full split. I hope you enjoyed our video today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, please check out our YouTube channel under Broche Ballet and comment, let us know your thoughts, and look forward to seeing you again soon.